every single night, long after the small town had fallen silent and everyone was asleep, a lone stray dog would appear through the freezing mist. He walked with quiet purpose straight to an old, weathered grave and sat there motionless. Then the barking began. Not angry, not wild. It was a deep, soul-piercing howl filled with unbearable sorrow, like he was desperately begging someone to finally understand. Why did this abandoned stray dog stand guard over this lonely grave night after night? What heartbreaking secret was he trying so hard to tell the people of this town? What they discovered left the entire community stunned and in tears. Stay with us, because this story will leave you absolutely speechless. Hey everyone! If you're watching from the US or anywhere around the world, please hit that like button right now if you believe in the incredible loyalty of our dogs. And if these kinds of stories touch your heart, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss one. To truly understand the depth of this dog's pain and unwavering devotion, we must go back several years to a time when the streets of this quiet Midwestern town still held warmth and hope for an old man named Mr. Harlan Thompson. Mr. Thompson was a quiet widower in his late 70s. He had lost his beloved wife, Margaret, almost 15 years earlier to a long illness. After her passing, the house that once echoed with laughter and family gatherings slowly grew silent. His 2 children had moved to distant cities for better opportunities, one in Chicago, the other in Denver. They called on holidays and visited once or twice a year, but the everyday emptiness became Mr. Thompson's constant companion. He lived in a modest white house with a small front porch, located just a short walk from the old cemetery. Most folks in town knew him as a gentle, reserved man who kept to himself. He spent his days tending a small vegetable garden, reading old books, and taking slow walks along the quiet country roads with his wooden cane. But beneath his calm exterior was a deep loneliness that few people ever noticed. 4 years before his passing, on a rainy autumn afternoon, Mr. Thompson's life changed in a way he never expected. While driving home from the grocery store, he spotted a small puppy lying motionless on the side of the rural road. The tiny dog had been struck by a speeding truck and left there to suffer. His leg was badly injured, his fur soaked with rain and blood, and he was barely breathing. Without hesitation, Mr. Thompson pulled over, gently wrapped the injured puppy in his old flannel jacket, and rushed him home. For the next several weeks, he became the puppy's full-time nurse. He carefully cleaned and bandaged the wounds every day, fed him warm broth with a spoon when the little one was too weak to eat, and stayed awake through countless cold nights, talking softly to keep the puppy calm. He named the dog Shadow, because even in those early days of recovery, the puppy would follow Mr. Thompson's every movement with his eyes, like a quiet shadow. As weeks turned into months, Shadow grew stronger. What started as a fragile, injured stray slowly transformed into a healthy, loyal companion with a shiny gray coat and bright, intelligent eyes. From that moment on, Shadow became Mr. Thompson's entire world. The old man, who had grown used to silence, now had someone who greeted him enthusiastically every morning. They developed a beautiful daily routine. Every afternoon, no matter how cold or how much his arthritis ached, Mr. Thompson would put on his coat, grab his cane, and walk slowly down the dirt paths near the river with Shadow trotting faithfully beside him. Neighbors began to notice the pair. They would smile and wave as the old man and his dog passed by. Mr. Thompson didn't talk much to people anymore, but when anyone asked about Shadow, his face would soften with genuine warmth. "He understands me better than anyone ever has," he once told Mrs. Evelyn Harper, the cemetery caretaker, in his quiet voice. "When I talk to him, I feel like someone is really listening." Shadow was far more than just a pet. He became Mr. Thompson's emotional anchor. On the long evenings, when the loneliness felt heaviest, when memories of his late wife flooded back, Shadow would lie quietly at the old man's feet, resting his head on his lap. When Mr. Thompson's joints pained him so badly that sleep was impossible, Shadow would stay awake with him, sometimes placing a gentle paw on his arm as if offering comfort. There were nights when Mr. acted. Thompson would sit in his old armchair and speak out loud about his life, about the joys and regrets, about the children he missed, and about how much he wished he could have done things differently. Shadow never grew impatient. He would sit perfectly still, gazing up at the old man with those deep, understanding eyes, as though he truly comprehended every word. As the years passed, Mr. Thompson's health began to decline noticeably. His hands trembled more, his steps became slower, and the pain in his body grew harder to ignore. Deep down, he knew his time on this earth was growing short. One quiet winter evening, when the wind howled outside and the house felt especially empty, Mr. Thompson sat down at his old wooden desk with a pen and paper. With great effort and trembling hands, he wrote a long, heartfelt letter. He poured out everything: the memories of saving Shadow, the comfort the dog had brought him during his loneliest years, his gratitude for their companionship, and his sorrow for not being able to stay longer. Most importantly, he wrote a final promise and a request. He asked Shadow to one day lead a kind person to his grave so that the loyal dog would not have to face the world alone. After finishing the letter, Mr. Thompson carefully folded it, placed it inside a small metal box, and walked slowly to the cemetery under the cover of darkness. He buried the box in the exact spot where he knew his grave would eventually be a place only Shadow, who had followed him there many times, could possibly remember and find. When Mr. Harlan Thompson passed away peacefully in his sleep more than a year later, the town felt a quiet sadness. But life moved on quickly for most people. Shadow, however, disappeared from sight for many months. No one knew where he had gone or how he had survived. The harsh winters and lonely streets, many assumed the dog had either died or run away to some distant place. But one cold evening, Shadow returned to the town. He was thinner than ever, his once shiny coat now dull and matted, his body weakened by hardship. Yet his eyes still burned with the same quiet determination and deep loyalty. And that was the night his long, heartbreaking vigil at Mr. Thompson's grave truly began. Then came the night that would change everything. The night when Shadow's silent suffering finally broke through to the human world. It was one of the coldest nights of the winter. The wind whipped through the bare trees, and frost covered the ground. Mrs. Evelyn Harper, the longtime cemetery caretaker, tossed and turned in her bed. She couldn't shake the sound of Shadow's barking that had grown louder and more desperate with each passing night. Something inside her told her she could no longer ignore it. She bundled herself in a heavy winter coat, scarf, and gloves, grabbed her flashlight, and stepped out into the freezing darkness. The beam of light cut through the mist as she made her way toward the old section of the cemetery where Mr. Thompson rested. As she approached the grave, the scene before her stopped her in her tracks. Shadow was frantically digging at the hard, frozen earth with his front paws. Dirt and frost flew in all directions. His barking had turned into a raw, heartbreaking combination of howls and whimper sounds filled with pure desperation, as if he was pleading for someone, anyone, to finally understand and help him. "Mrs." Harper called out softly. "Easy, boy, easy." But Shadow did not run away this time. Instead, he looked up at her with eyes glistening with tears, his body trembling from exhaustion and cold. For a moment, their eyes met, and in that instant, Mrs. Harper felt something shift deep inside her. She saw not just a stray dog, but a soul carrying an unbearable burden. Moved by his raw plea, she knelt down beside him, despite the freezing ground. "All right," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Let's see what you're trying to show me." Together, the old woman and the loyal dog began to dig. Shadow's paws worked tirelessly, and Mrs. Harper used her hands and a small garden trowel she had brought. The ground was hard, but their combined effort slowly broke through the frozen layer. Just a few inches beneath the surface, they uncovered a small rusted metal box covered in dirt and frost. With trembling hands, Mrs. Harper carefully lifted the box and opened it. Inside, protected by a plastic bag, was a folded letter. The paper was slightly yellowed, but still intact. She unfolded it under the beam of her flashlight and began to read. It was Mr. Harlan Thompson's final letter to Shadow. In shaky but clear handwriting, the old man had poured out his heart. He wrote about the rainy day he had found the injured puppy on the roadside. He described the weeks of nursing Shadow back to health, and how the dog had become his only true friend in his final years. He spoke of the comfort Shadow had given him during sleepless nights, the quiet walks they shared, and the deep loneliness that Shadow had helped ease. He expressed his regret for leaving Shadow behind and his sorrow that he could not stay longer. But most powerfully, he wrote his final request. "If you find this, my loyal friend, please lead a kind person here. Don't stay alone in this cold world. Find someone who will love you the way I did." As Mrs. Harper read the last lines, tears streamed freely down her weathered cheeks. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Oh, Shadow, you poor, loyal soul." She turned to look at the dog. Shadow had stopped digging. He now sat quietly beside the grave, his body no longer trembling with desperation. The pain and urgency in his eyes had been replaced by a profound, quiet peace, as if an enormous weight had finally been lifted from his shoulders. He had completed the most important mission of his life. By the time the first light of dawn appeared, Mrs. Harper had called a few close neighbors. Word of what had been discovered spread like wildfire through the small town. By mid-morning, dozens of residents had gathered at the cemetery. Many stood in stunned silence around the grave, overwhelmed with emotion. Some wiped away tears as they heard the full story. Others felt a deep wave of regret for all the times they had chased Shadow away or dismissed him as just another stray. The loyal dog who had been ignored and driven off for so many nights was suddenly seen in a completely new light, not as a nuisance, but as a hero of unwavering devotion. From that unforgettable night onward, the story of Shadow and Mr. Harlan Thompson began to heal not only the dog, but also the heart of the entire town. Mrs. Evelyn Harper made a decision that very morning. She could not let Shadow return to the cold streets. She gently led the exhausted dog to her warm home, where she gave him a long-overdue bath, prepared a soft bed near the fireplace, and fed him a proper, nourishing meal for the first time in many months. At first, Shadow remained cautious. He would wake up suddenly at night, sometimes walking to the window as if still searching for the grave. But Mrs. Harper was patient and kind. She spoke to him softly, just as Mr. Thompson once had. Slowly, day by day, the walls of fear and loneliness around Shadow's heart began to crumble. Every single morning, without fail, Mrs. Harper would put on her coat and walk with Shadow to visit Mr. Thompson's grave. At first, the dog would sit there with a quiet sadness. But as the weeks passed, his expression changed. He no longer howled in pain. Instead, he sat peacefully beside the headstone, his eyes calm and content, as though he was simply spending quiet time with an old friend. The transformation in the town was equally remarkable. The story of the loyal stray dog and the letter from beyond spread rapidly. Local newspapers picked it up. People from neighboring towns began driving over just to see the grave and meet Shadow. Residents who had once thrown rocks or chased him away now brought fresh flowers, dog treats, and small tokens of respect to Mr. Thompson's resting place every week. Families started talking more openly about their own pets. Parents told their children the story of Shadow as a powerful lesson in loyalty and compassion. Elderly residents living alone reached out to neighbors, and many decided to adopt or better care for their dogs. The entire community seemed to pause and reflect on how easily we can overlook the quiet devotion happening right in front of us. Shadow's health improved dramatically under Mrs. Harper's care. His coat grew shiny again, his ribs disappeared, and a gentle sparkle returned to his eyes. He became a beloved member of her household, often seen walking proudly beside her through town. Children would stop to pet him, and adults would smile and nod with respect when they saw him. On quiet, moonlit nights, some townspeople still reported seeing Shadow sitting peacefully by Mr. Thompson's grave. But now there was no desperate barking, only a beautiful, calm companionship between a loyal dog and the memory of the man who had once saved him. Shadow lived out the rest of his days, surrounded by warmth, love, and the respect of an entire town that had finally learned to see him for who he truly was, a hero of the heart. The extraordinary story of Shadow, the loyal stray dog who refused to abandon his friend even after death, leaves us with a profound and timeless truth that resonates deeply with every dog lover in America and around the world. Loyalty like this is not mere instinct. It is a pure, unconditional love that transcends time, hardship, and even the boundary between life and death. While humans can become busy with daily life and sometimes forget, dogs remember. They remember the kindness shown to them. They remember the voice that once comforted them. And they remember the promises made in silence. Mr. Harlan Thompson left this world feeling lonely, but in reality, he was never truly alone. Because waiting for him, watching over him, and carrying out his final wish was Shadow, a dog whose devotion turned sorrow into a sacred mission and fulfilled a promise that most humans would have long forgotten. This story calls us to look deeper. It asks us to pause amid our busy lives and truly see the animals who share our homes and our hearts. Take a quiet moment today. Look into the eyes of your own dog. Hold them close, scratch behind their ears, and whisper a sincere thank you. Because to them, you are not simply an owner. You are their whole world. You are their family. You are everything. In a world that often feels divided and fast-paced, stories like Shadow's remind us of the simple but powerful virtues that still matter most: kindness, loyalty, compassion, and the courage to love without conditions. If this story touched your heart the way it has touched so many others, please take a moment right now to hit the like button. Your like helps these important messages reach more people who need to hear them. Share this video with your friends and family, especially those who have dogs or are thinking about adopting one. And if you want to be part of a community that celebrates these beautiful true stories of courage and second chances, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for staying with us until the very end of this emotional journey. Your time and attention mean more than you know. We will continue to bring you more powerful, true stories about our four-legged heroes, stories that remind us what real love and loyalty look like. Until next time, stay kind, cherish the dogs in your life, and remember, sometimes the greatest lessons come from the quietest, most loyal hearts.